Okay, so being impatient as always, we've actually got this together, and you can see we're looking nice, but we have got these little tiny itty bitty joins, and pushing down on them and all the rest of it doesn't seem to make, to be honest with you, a great deal of difference. This side's not so bad, but yeah, there's definitely something not quite right in there. But we are talking microns here. We're not getting too excited about it, but there's definitely just a little something in there. So what we're going to do is we've gone around and we've taken our time just down in here, and we've put a bead of normal extra thin, not the quick set, just the normal one, right the way down in here and down on these leading edges, and they are perfect. But you might notice it looks like we do have quite a gap just down each side. Okay, now to be honest with you, we got two ways of tackling this. We could put a shimmer plastic card down it and cut it, or you could just come in with a little bit of filler. Okay, whichever way, I don't think it's going to be a mass problem. These ones at the front here though, I just want to take care of them with a little bit of the actual weld action stuff, but to be honest, because it's not much of an area, we're just going to use a thinner one. So this is my one that's just like consistency of milk. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're just going to pop in a tiny little bit on each one of those sides, just so it helps to, one, fill those areas, but hopefully you can see it. Get the camera to play ball under here, there we go. It's just at this leading little edge just here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to come along and we're just going to literally just put in a little bead just in each one, and we're just going to put a little bead just down coming off of it. This is just to make sure that that entire front end, can we going to play ball? There we go, is okay. The inside of it, to be honest, isn't too bad at all, but we're just going to put a little bit in there as well, and just a little bit on this edge, just going to put some meat on the bones almost, just so in case we want to come in and sand, we've got something to go against. Okay, so just a little bit on this edge, just down in there. And there we go, that's all in there. Now down in here we've got a very fine step, which is fine for us because we're going to use that to put our extra thin in, just to make sure all of that is solidly all glued together, because you don't want to be sanding it and split the seam. So again, if you don't have enough glue, what can happen is you come along and then you'll literally just split the seam wide open. This is the more troublesome side, if you like, out of the two. Again, if this plays ball. There it is, up there, same thing. So what we'll do, we'll just grab another bit of this, and again, same thing again, we're just going to come in from the front, we're just going to walk this down the back just a little bit, and same thing again, we're just going to put a little bit around the actual intake itself, just so if we do sand and everywhere, it's got a little bit of something to go, and again, tiny little bit on this leading edge. Okay, and that takes care of that. Okay, these ones down in here, as you can see, got small little areas, so this is beginning to dry out a little bit, so we're just going to come in with a little bit of this stuff. As I say, it's just thicker than, if you like the way I make this stuff, it's just a tiny little bit thicker than milk almost, so it's a little bit of styrene sheet, so you've got all the glue and all the capabilities of that mixed in with a very thin bit of filler, so the capillary action's great, and it will go off and it will zip round and do everywhere as well. So we're just going to fill in just these little bits along here, and again, if you drag it, you'll notice the capillary action's great, it will pull itself along. Okay, and like I said before, there is videos on this which I'll link down below to show you how to make this stuff, and if you wanted to, you could just put a bead of it down in the rest of it. But if you wanted to do that, and I'll tell you what, we'll just use our thicker stuff, and then we'll just sand and blend it once it's all down in here and everything else. So this is our really thick stuff. If I can get the lid off one-handed. Okay, so again, we're just going to come along and we just fill this in. And again, there's a big void under there, so you may need 2 or 3 coats. Technically, this is probably bordering on line where I'll just come in with a plasticard shim. So we just put a little bit of plasticard just down in there, and you can then just trim it to shape, so it's minimal filler. But you know, filling is modelling, as I always say. So that's those just down in there. Here it's beginning to sink in a bit, so we're just going to double up, put the B. But again, you want it to stand proud, so technically when you're coming along and sanding and new panel line going in, you've got some meat to be able to do it. And there we go, that does that side, and this side's a lot thinner, so to be honest we might as well do the thin one as well. So again, what we'll do is we'll sand this down when it's totally cured off, so we'll probably give it at least 24 hours for this to go off, and then what we'll do is we will then pop a brand new panel line in, taking care of it. Okay, so just coming down in here. It's very warm in here today, so it won't take long to dry, but you can probably see the rest of it is absolutely fine. So what we'll do is we'll literally just sand that new panel line down in there, and nobody know it would happen. But you might find you might need to get 2 coats of it. I'm not sure exactly how that's going to go, but generally it's very much looking the part. Okay, so next up will be obviously fitting the cockpit area in. So one thing I have noticed, I don't know if you can see it as well, it looks like there's a tooth area, but don't forget I haven't touched that because that's not me. So this should be a straightforward, he says, push in, and to be honest we are going to need probably a little bit of filler, but that was there. So what I was talking about, you see that on the back side of it, it looks like it's not completely flush, it shows. Okay, so it's obviously got something going on down the bottom. Underneath, and again, we have got just a little bit, I think, of something just needs to be sorted out down in here. And again, just being careful. It doesn't look too bad. I think once it's got a nudge, it should be absolutely okay. Okay, but yeah, it's a little bit soft on there. So we'll see how that goes. But what I don't want to do is obviously be pulling it around when we've got wet stuff at the front and on the back and all the rest of it. So again, we'll give that a little bit of time. Let that just go off. Again, it may need 2 or 3 coats, we're not sure, we'll see how it goes with shrinkage, and then we can actually get the nose system fitted onto this one. Again, being careful, there's a lot of nose weight in there, it's always going to want to pull itself down or away, so again we're going to make sure it's got a good amount of glue, it's in there and positively in place. So we might even stand it on its end so just the weight's going down into the model, because otherwise with this amount of nose weight all you're going to do is be pulling it and you're going to end up splitting seams and stuff on there. Okay, so once that one's in, then we can install the tail one, which will go on the back there, and for the first time we'll have something that looks like a Vulcan. Okay, so we're looking really nice down in here. Hopefully you can see that. It's dry, it's going to take a long time to go off, but it has done the job in there, and I think by the time we just sand and then we'll blend and then we'll put a new panel line in there, it'll look absolutely fantastic. All the rest of them look pretty good. Even the ones down under here on this front, you can see, I'll get the camera to play ball, come on, there we go. Doesn't look too bad, it just needs to be blended in and we'll be fine. And to be honest, we've got to do a little bit around here and it'll be absolutely fine, no problem at all. But generally it's all looking very good. So now we've got the moment of actually that's making this thing look a little bit like a Vulcan, so we've got to put this front on. So again, this is that toothed area, hopefully you can see it there on the close-up. It's just a little step. And it is a proper step. Now the bit I don't understand is that technically this is a top. This isn't like it sort of 2 halves come together and, you know, so forth and so on. It's got this step. But yeah, it's just a little bit weird. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sand that gently out or blend it through just a little bit. What that'll enable it to do, there won't be such a sharp divide on the other one. But again, it's a bit rare that you get something noticeable even on this. So we're just going to take out this just by popping it down here. It's just that because we've got this one under here, you would think it would cancel out the one above it, but clearly it hasn't. So what we're going to do is just going to give it a bit of a sand to take care of it. And we're going to make sure we are clean right the way around here as well. So we're just going to cleaning off any paint. So obviously we've got a little bit of white paint down under here, so we're just going to make sure that that's not going to foul or interfere with anything. And then what we're going to do is come up from underneath and push in. Now obviously you've got to get these side tabs have got to go in all at the same time, so, and it is a little bit fiddly to go, but there we go, that's in. These under here, there's a small little step just there, but when you push it, it improves the alignment on the other side. So again, we've got a lot of stuff going on under here, but that doesn't look too bad. But when you flip over now, as you can see, by sanding, we've just made a little bit of a gap back here. And again, there's no easy way to fix that said problem. It's just one of those ones that's there, and I think we almost have to live with it. Okay, but what we're going to do is we're going to pop this off. We're going to come back to our thicker glue, because what we're going to hope is this is going to squish out a little bit. Okay, so we're just going to put a little bit of a bead of glue around in here. One is this is going to be fully structural, so it will stop any problems with it falling off with any luck, but also it should fill some of the gaps. So if it squishes up just a little bit, to be honest, we don't mind that. Okay, so that's in, and then we come at the back. To be honest, it runs forward, and again, it's not a massive amount. So if we push that forward, as you can see, it's pretty much got it. So I've got good pressure on this now to push this in, but the whole point is you shouldn't be over pushing it. You can do if you want. So what we're probably going to end up with is having a look under here, and to be honest, that doesn't look too bad at all, nor does the top. So I'm really happy of how that is. So what we're going to do is we're going to stick this up here. We're going to grab a cotton bud purely to wipe off that excess glue, because I don't want it running down the back here. But what we can do, we can just stand this up on here, and to be honest, it doesn't look too bad at all. So generally though, we've got a very nice fit on one side. This one's got a little bit of a toothed action, but I'm sure that will blend in, and I can't imagine it interfering with anything else. Okay, so again, I know hopefully you can see we're looking pretty damn good on that side. And if we can get this to lock in the other side, you can see this is that little step on this side, but generally the rest of it is all very nice and is in position. Okay, the glue's not going to run out now or anything else, but what we might have to end up doing is this thing we did on the wing, just round all of that. Again, it's a really simple, it's a nice big area, there's no little fine details you're going to ruin or anything else like that. So what we're going to do, we're going to let that stand there for around about half an hour again, let the glue properly get a bite of it. But this is what we're saying, we don't want to lean this one down, all that nose weight is going to pull it. It's going to end up with a top seam, I tell you. So what you can do is we're just going to stand this over here. Okay, just going to pop it down there and lean it up against the spray booth. It can be drying off literally just down on there. Same thing's going to happen here with the tail. So we've got the tail system, and again that will literally just comes along, as you can see back here, and it's going to push in. So to be honest, I can do that probably off camera because it is literally just a push fit in. What we'll do then is we'll come back to do this. So we'll put in these tabs each side of it and make sure they're in, and again, it's quite easy to clean up around it. The nice thing about the design of these intakes is that it's not like a fiddly little area and you can't get into. A couple of swipes with a sanding stick and it's going to clean it up, buff it back up, you're good to go, and that's the nice thing with it. Moving on, what's going to happen up next, once those things are all in there, we're going to be working on the engine, and we do get these guides. Okay, so we've got this one, E1, isn't part of it, it's just a guide for lining up the actual engines and exhaust, so we can go through the motions of doing those ones. Then we can actually come back and we'll be putting all of these intake or like cooling areas for the underside of the engines in. Then we got the strakes going to be fitted down into the back and all the rest of it, obviously depending on versions, because that's quite a big thing. And then we're going to be coming back to doing some other major components. So down in here, obviously we've got the tails going on there. We've got the rudder being fitted in, and then obviously we've got the flaperons down in here, and the ailerons being fitted down onto it as well. So again, there's still plenty of bits to do to bring this to life, but technically what that does is get it all together. Okay, so you join us back after a little bit of a break. It's been around about 4 days since that we finished putting the gluey bits on and all the rest of it. And as you can see, we've pretty much got good detail down in all these areas, and we've got obviously a little bit of sanding work to do there. And then obviously round the neck, we've put in the actual filler again, right the way round, and it's completely on there and it's completely rock hard. Now, if you're using like a styrene filler, it's one of those things, it pretty much will dry out. If you've got a thin coat, within a good couple of hours it's ready to go. But if you can leave it long term, any shrinkage will be done with, so you won't need to go back in there and take care of it and all the rest of it. So the easiest way to do this one is to literally, as we've been doing the other areas, like on the undersides and things like that. So we're just going to grab a scraper. Okay, we'll just pop this down 1 second. It's getting big now because obviously you've got to watch where you're bunging this thing. Okay, so what we need to do is now we just need to slightly profile this area down in here, and then obviously we need to take care of this. All right, so we're going to use a blade. So again, this is a panel line, so don't be frightened that, you know, this has gone off, but we have put a tiny bead of filler in here, so we need to work with it. So the first part up here actually is absolutely fine, so that can be just sanded, but the rest of it just needs a little bit of profile. So what we're using is the flatter part of the blade. We're not using the curve because we don't want to make a channel, if you like, right the way through. So we're using slightly more further along, and we're just going to come along and we're just going to shave off, and then hopefully you can see, you catch it in the light, you've got the shininess. So you're looking at this shininess and just working out that you're taking off the top side and not the bottom. And that's a great thing with scrape cleaning. Sanders tend to take everything, but scrape cleaners do this. Also, you won't destroy too much detail around it. Okay, so you can take a nice steady amount of height out of this. You can probably see it just here, and you see the shininess, this darker line running down here. That's just where we need to make the height difference. So we're just going to continue to sand until it's pretty much just in that panel line, and when it's in that panel line, we know we're in the ballpark. So we're just reducing the height, looking pretty good. And again, this is tiny, you're talking nanometers. We're not taking off chunks of plastic here, it's just very lightly doing it. So again, as always, let the tool do the work. We're going to do a little bit of the curve now, just to finish off some of the higher little areas. Okay, and then that is pretty much absolutely fine. So then you can just come along with a sander. Okay, and we just give this a little rub. And to be honest, that's ready for rescribing in a minute. And that's taken that, because this is naturally a panel line that runs in here, so we don't want to totally obliterate it. Okay, so this down here where we had that proper filler, okay, same thing. You can use any scribe you like, you know, certain things. So we're just going to pop along on this one, and again, same thing. Now this has got a slight taper to it, so we don't want to take anything out of here. We just need it to be in here. So we're going to use slight curve of the blade. And again, by looking at it, you can see the shininess of the filler on the sides. So we're just trying to take down the height to start with. And again, you can see we're not destroying any panel lines around it or anything else. Okay, so we can just continue to slightly go in. So we turn the around now, doing it away from us. Very, very lightly. So we're not really pushing down, we're just letting it scrape. Again, it's doing really nicely. Okay, that's actually looking really nice now. So let's just do this back area. Okay, just a little bit along here. Blend those two in. Okay, so now we've just got this little tiny seam just down this edge. So again, turn it round, so we're pulling it towards us. Okay, now we're just going to turn it completely around. Okay, and we're just going to slightly push away. I think we're pretty much there. Okay, so that's taking care of that. So then we'll sand. And again, we're not using a particularly hard sand or anything else. There's an old worn out one. Okay, so we can just lightly go. Alright, so it's just got a little bit still down on here. You can probably see the little lines on it there. So we're just going to try and scrape that away. So now we're going to do a sort of 45 degrees. Okay, and coming in at this angle, we'll just lift off. And again, it's really light, you're not digging. And if you wanted to, of course, you could use, if you've got other types of scrapers, you can come in and say you've got a sort of slight curve on this one. So it's great for this type of work. I'm just doing the edges. And to be honest, that's really nice. Okay, so again, back in with the sander, clean up work. And again, can't feel anything, it feels totally smooth, there's no roughness. So don't forget the styrene filler, because it's basically made of glue, it will mark the plastic around it. So these white marks you can probably see in here, there's nothing there, that's totally smooth. It's just literally because it's got the actual glues melted into the plastic. It's just changed the plastic a little bit. But again, that won't be seen by the time it's had everything done to it. Alright, so that's done like that. So next up, clear the swap out the way. Alright, we can actually start to scribe this one. So scribing wise, I like the UMM USA scribers. This is the number 3, it's the long handled one. Absolutely fantastic. And I've got an old tri-tool scribing template. So usual thing, place the scriber in your channel, butt your scribing tool up to it. Okay, work out how far you need to go. Okay, so when you're all good and you're happy, and again, you could tape it down and things, but I think that's about right. So again, scribing is never as far as you think it needs. So you're just going to give it a light pass. You can see the swath, that is it. That's all it needs. You don't want to be going back and back, trust me, because otherwise you'll go too far. Back in where we made that original hole, and this I think is going to run pretty much down the entire length of this. Okay, up to that line. There we go. And then what we're going to do is simply pop these across to go. So these ones here, just going to do a little bit of clean up with these. These are just going to be coming down to the panel line, but they don't go any further. So again, into the panel line, line up, pull down till you feel it hit the panel line. Okay, and then same on these. Onto there. Go right up. Okay, and then these ones at the end, exactly the same, into the panel line, up against it, and this is going to go down to our line. So then obviously we're just going to come along, and we're just going to go right down to it, just like that. Let me just move right out of the way, we're running out of room here. Okay, and then next one, up to it, lock it in, hold it, just walk it down to the line. Again, I'm just going to tidy up this one just a little bit. Just go to the panel line. Tricky trying to get this one on angle. So what we can do, we'll pull it to there. Then we'll grab it. It's in there. Okay, last one. Okay, so last one to go in is this one down the bottom. So again, exactly the same thing, just taking your time with it. So we're just going to put the tri-tool and we're going to line this up with the rear part just down in here. Okay, so that just sits in there like that, and then that goes in there, and then literally one single drag, very light, and one more just to make sure, and that's in there. Okay, and that's taking care of all of those. And then afterwards you just give it a light sand so you can just make sure your panel line is good. So you've just literally just filled it up with dust, and you can look around now and just make sure you're happy with how all those are. Then you get the dust out later for spraying. All right, so you can see pretty straightforward. So all we got to do now, this guy at the front, to be honest, we've got to do the same on the tail as well. Okay, so again, this is going to be exactly the same thing. So scrape clean right the way across, all the way around, just as we've done the other ones. Sand it, pop the panel lines back in, and we'll be good to go with there. Okay, so last up really is just a case of the actual leading edges. So these leading edges, hopefully you can see down the front here, there's a small little step just down on here like that. So same thing again, what we can do is you can use a scraper and you can just literally scrape away the areas. The trouble using it on an area like this is that technically what you're going to be doing is flattening it off. Okay, so that's never a good thing. You don't really want to be flattening it so you get a square edge on it. So if you've got one of these have got curves on them, as you can see. So you can put these on, roughly work out the actual curve for this one, which is pretty much down here, and do it. And this will scrape clean with a curve on it. Okay, so we can just go like that. And that's, to be honest, pretty nice. Just a little bit there. Okay, there we go. We've got a very nice edge on that one right the way through. So last time we just got to put the panel lines in. So panel lines obviously go right the way round, and where we've sanded it, we've taken them off. So we take a scribing tool again. We've got a long blade, so you could use a knife. I'll show you both ways. So you pop this one in here, and all you do is roll it round and push it like a saw blade, and you just curve it right the way round. Okay, and again into this one, we go into the panel line, bring it across, and then you just roll it round. But if you wanted to, you could use a blade as well. So the last one here, same thing, find the panel line in there like that, and we just roll it around. And that puts that leading edge panel line in. So if we sand it now, as you can see, or hopefully you see, we've actually got the dust in there, denoting that they're back in there. And we've got a perfectly nice profiled edge on the front edge with these wings now. So we've got no problem with those at all. Very, very nice. And again, we're looking good everywhere. So what we're going to do, we'll get this one done, get that sorted out, and then we'll be working on things like the engines at the back. Then we'll be working obviously on the tail and really bringing it together.